Chicago in the 1930s. It had the single largest street railway system in the world. Not only was the Chicago Surface Lines a leader in largesse, it also led the way in high-tech innovation in developing the most modern streetcars of its time. One of the most influential streetcars was 1934 Chicago Surface Lines number 4001, a car to which approximately 20,000 other streetcars can trace its lineage to. This is the story of CSL number 4001, a true parent of the famed PCC streetcar. Hi, this is Jeffrey. Back in the 1930s, Chicago had the world's largest streetcar system. Now, not only was it the largest, but it also was probably the most innovative streetcar system anywhere in the world. Now, the 20,000 PCC streetcars that were built worldwide that utilize PCC technologies and patents can trace its lineage back to 4 streetcars built in the early 1930s. And we're going to take a look at one of those 4, which was number 4001 of the Chicago Surface Lines, a very interesting and innovative streetcar which actually still exists today. So let's get started in learning the story of Chicago Surface Lines number 4001, the parent of the PCC streetcar. During the span of 4 days, in late September of 1934, hundreds of street railway managers, owners, engineers, and experts gathered in Cleveland, Ohio for the convention of the American Transit Association. The highlight of the annual convention, for the first time since the start of the Great Depression, was a collection of the latest and most advanced streetcars. The 4 examples on display on this occasion were completely different from anything that had been seen before. 2 were custom-built prototypes built for the Chicago Surface Lines. The lessons learned from these 4 test cars would lead to the creation of the most successful streetcar ever designed, the PCC, with over 20,000 streetcars and rapid transit cars worldwide tracing their lineage directly to the 4 cars on display behind the Cleveland Convention Center. The goal of the Electric Railway President's Conference Committee, also known as the ERPCC, was to create a standardized streetcar design that could be used by most, if not all, street railway companies in the country. In October of 1933, President Guy A. Richardson of the Chicago Surface Lines, also known as CSL, the largest street railway system in the country with over 3,700 cars and 1,100 miles of track, and one of the 25 members of the ERPCC, decided to have a pair of prototype cars constructed for Chicago. These cars would be developed in parallel with the ERPCC test cars then under development, and, while not built as part of the ERPCC program, would utilize many of the same design requirements as the ERPCC car. They would, however, be uniquely Chicago cars. The CSL contracted 2 of the largest streetcar builders, Pullman-Standard and J.G. Brill, to construct 1 car each. Brill and Pullman were given a great deal of leeway, but a few requirements were set down by CSL, including number 1, the cars will be single-ended. Number 2, they would be 2-man cars. Number 3, they will have 3 stream entry doors at the front, 2 stream center exit doors, and a single exit door at the rear. Number 4, they would seat 58 passengers and be approximately 50 feet long. The Brill car, CSL 7001, was the first car completed and made its first runs in Chicago in March of 1934. 4 months later, on July 6th, the Pullman-Standard car number 4001 was completed at the Chicago plant and delivered to the CSL. It was unlike anything built before. Its most outstanding feature was that it was built entirely of aluminum. A 50-foot streetcar carrying 58 passengers, it weighed only 29,600 pounds, only 55% as much as the 44-seat old Pullmans that held down service on many of Chicago's heavier lines. It had an arched roof, large picture windows, ribbed sides that sloped inwards toward the roof, and curved skirts that hid the underfloor electrical equipment. CSL number 4001 was placed on display at Navy Pier on July 8th and downtown at Adams and State the next day, with over 13,000 people passing through the car. But almost immediately, an obvious problem arose. July of 1934 was unusually hot, and it soon became clear that car 4001's sealed windows and forced air ventilation system were not up to the task of keeping the car cool. In August, CSL arranged with Pullman to provide an entire car's worth of replacement two-pane windows that could open, with the requisite safety bars added to the car's exterior. The hastily built replacement windows, unlike the rest of the car, were made of steel and were plated with chrome. The aluminum prototype car was placed in service on August 28th on a regular run based out of Limit's Car House and operating between State and Kinsey Streets and the 18th Street gate of the Century of Progress World's Fair, then in its second season in Burnham Park. For a brief period, Chicagoans could reach the World's Fair on a vehicle every bit as modern as the Skyride or the Home of Tomorrow. On September 7th, car 4001 was returned to Pullman for some minor repairs and modifications, along with a new coat of paint in a lighter shade of blue before it was shipped to Cleveland for its convention appearance. After its return to Chicago 3 weeks later, it was placed into revenue service. CSL 4001 was eye-catching in its unique blue and silver paint scheme, and together with car 7001 was more modern than anything else on rails in Chicago. But its electrical systems were unproven, and spare parts were difficult to come by. On May 15, 1942, car 4001 was transferred to Kedzie Car House and put into tripper service on Madison Street, where it operated alongside the Blue Goose PCC fleet. Over time, it developed a reputation as a hangar queen. It didn't rack up much mileage on Madison Street and was taken out of revenue service in 1944. The car was soon converted into a classroom for bus driver instruction classes, and following a failure in its accelerator, the mobile classroom was simply towed dead around the city to locations where it was needed. Car 4001 was put into storage at Lawndale Car House in March of 1947, transferred to Division Car House in December of that year, and was officially retired from the active fleet on April 15, 1948. In the early 1950s, it was moved to storage at Burnside Car House and soon thereafter was moved to the South Shops complex at 77 and Vincennes. The car sat at South Shops, located next to car 7001 and used as a storage room. In December 1955, the car's trucks were removed and scrapped, and it was converted into an office. Car 4001 remained at South Shops for another decade or so. It was acquired by the Electric Railway Historical Society in West Suburban Downers Grove. But with storage space at the Historical Society site lacking, the car was moved to the Illinois Railway Museum in Union. 3 years later, the Historical Society was dissolved and its entire collection was donated to the IRM. After several moves, it was moved inside of Barn 8 and placed on surplus PCC trucks. Following this move, some cosmetic restoration work was performed. In 2009, space was needed for cars just acquired in good condition, and 4001 was tarped and placed in outdoor storage in Yard 14, where it remains today. Let's now take a look at the unique design and construction aspects of Car 4001. When Car 4001 rolled out of the factory, its interior differed significantly from other streetcars of the day. Like the car body itself, the biggest difference was in its all-aluminum construction. Virtually all other streetcars at the time had wooden interiors. Even the Brill experimental CSL 7001 used masonite on its interior. On Car 4001, all wall and ceiling panels were aluminum, as were fittings and trim. The car seats were comfortably upholstered in leather, a contrast with the majority of the Chicago streetcar fleet, where rattan was the standard. Lighting was indirect incandescent, using an amazing 160 bulbs arrayed down a center channel, which also was part of the forced air ventilation system. Forced air ventilation was intended to cool the car, with 3 ducts running the length of the body. Number 4001 used the XD223 controller, which was similar to the XD323 that was fitted to the first PCC cars of 1936. The trucks built for Car 4001 were a unique Pullman-Standard design with cast aluminum frames and journal bearings inboard of the wheels. Unlike the eventual B2 truck used under production PCC cars, Car 4001's trucks used a traditional suspension arrangement. The wheels were a sandwich design, similar to super resilient PCC wheels using aluminum inserts and steel treads with rubber inserts to reduce vibration. The motors, Westinghouse 1430Ds, were 50 horsepower, 300-volt motors designed for a maximum speed of 5,000 RPM. The car's low weight and large motors made it about 40% quicker than the system's older cars in normal operation. Of the 4 test cars being tested in 1934, Car 4001 was the only one to use dynamic air and electromagnetic brakes, the same combination which would be adopted for the first years of PCC cars. On the whole, Car 4001 was a valuable stepping stone towards the system of blended dynamic air and electromagnetic brakes that would be reused in hundreds of PCC cars in the coming years. While there were both similarities and differences between Car 4001 and the eventual production PCC that was to come a couple of years later, it nonetheless played a major part in the development of what is probably the single most successful type of streetcar ever built, the PCC. Now, even though Car 4001 was a one-of-a-kind, it played such an influential role in the development of the PCC streetcar that its story really needed to be told. And when I read about it on the Hicks Car Works blog, I really thought that this would make such a great video. So I want to thank the Hicks Car Works blog for their permission in using the information as well as the photographs on their site. And the photographs are also part of the Illinois Railway Museum collection. So thank you to them for also allowing me to use it in this video. And please visit the Hicks Car Works blog site because there's so much more information about Car 4001 that I simply could not put it into one video. And there's many other things of interest on the Hicks Car Works blog site. So also you should visit the website of the Illinois Railway Museum. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at Car 4001, one of the parents of the PCC streetcar. And as always, thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.